Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and we go over the week's events in the world of Scientology as reported on Tony's Substack address you can see right there on the screen in front of you. Hey, Tony, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Yes, let's talk Scientology. We have a few stories to go over from this week, starting with, you just can't shake your head enough at some of these groups. The NAACP and some fundraiser at the Fort Harrison. What's the story here?
Yeah, so there's a Clearwater chapter of the NAACP that has sent out a fundraising letter asking people to sign up for tables and things like that for this big gala they're going to have, their 51st anniversary celebration. And that's hey, they're a nonprofit organization. They need to raise money. This is what they do. They have a nice evening event, and people pay money for tables and seats and that kind of thing. Nothing wrong with that. But I did a double take when I saw where they're holding it, the Fort Harrison Hotel. Church of Scientology, literally the Church of Scientology's most holy site in the whole world. And since I put out that story, I've actually heard from some people. Now I'm still checking into things and nothing's official, but I heard from somebody that was actually at the meeting where the NAACP was talking about remember, this is the local NAACP. This is not the national level one. And they're trying to figure out, we need to put together an event. And listen, I understand it's tough for nonprofits because they got to think about how much they pay for the venue, how much they pay for the catering. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and you're trying to make some money. Well, I was told that Pat Harney, Scientology's Clearwater spokeswoman, one of the very few Black Scientologists there are, was at the meeting and said, you know what, come to the Fort Harrison Hotel. We'll let you use it for free. We'll provide the food. We'll take care of all the valet car and everything. Everything's taken care of. Won't cost you a dime. So, I mean, you can understand why the NAACP was like, wow, what a deal. We can't turn that down, right?
Yeah.
I want to get the timing on it, though, because it's interesting because right now the Church of Scientology is facing opposition to, they're building this L. Ron Hubbard Hall downtown. They want possession of this little street that's going to be out in front of it. And there's a group of folks that have counter proposed turning the street into a place where they recognize Clearwater's Black heritage. So right now, Scientology is getting into some, especially those city council members are getting into some arguments with some local Black residents of Clearwater. Now suddenly Scientology's offered the NAACP full use of the Fort Harrison so they can raise a lot of money. The timing on that is interesting. But, what I did in my story was I just pointed out, Scientology took over the Fort Harrison Hotel because L. Ron Hubbard told them to do it surreptitiously. And what's his background, right? And so there's this one lecture he gave on the last day of 1960 in South Africa, and it's a doozy. I mean, he's saying things like, they want to give the Black man here a vote. He doesn't even know what a vote is. I mean, just really wretched stuff. He had quite an idea about Black people. So I just wonder how much of that history the NAACP knows, and I just thought it was worth bringing up. I think there may be some other press coverage coming on that at some point. I don't know, but that that ceremony is coming up fairly soon.
Okay, got it on that. Well, clearly, this is going to serve a couple different purposes for Pat Harney from a PR Scientology angle. One, of course, will we support the Black community? Look, we're giving them our event space for free, right? I mean, there's a lot of PR value there to push back against any kind of racial bias that somebody might throw in their direction because of this street thing. Also, of course, this is PR area control, that concept we've discussed before, where they want to get not only government officials or lawmakers, but also civic leaders and local organizations and groups on their side, especially at something like the local chapter of the NAACP. Nice feather in their cap, and they get to play nice with local community groups that they can call themselves allies to, because it's easy for them to do so. I mean, at the end of the day, what does it cost Scientology to throw some food and some Sea Org free slave labor, at a local event, right? It literally costs Scientology almost nothing compared to what they get from it. So if anybody's, wondering, well, why would they do this? Oh, there's all kinds of reasons to do it.
Yeah, good point.
And yeah, as you very clearly said, the NAACP from their side, it's like, well, why would we not? Come on. But of course they shouldn't, because if they know, did you tone down that lecture from Hubbard's adventures in Rhodesia and South Africa are wow. I mean, the racism, it speaks for itself if you go back to the documents.
I mean, one of my favorite points about that is right around that time, he and Lenny Riefenstahl were collaborating on a screenplay for a movie that didn't get made, and then he had invited her to South Africa to help him make some films that she knew were going to be pro-apartheid propaganda, and she said no. So when Adolf Hitler's favorite filmmaker thinks that what you're doing is too racist, what does that say?
Right? Exactly. I mean, come on, man. That is truly funny. So yeah, the Scientology, and let me just say this, just to throw it out there, right? Scientologists are not indoctrinated into racism. They're not generally a racist lot of people, but Hubbard, oh, no question, and his active work to manipulate and deceive South Africa, Rhodesia. I mean, it's legendary what he tried to pull off, and they kicked him out. Okay. Now this next one, ooh, did this get my blood boiling? All right, Scientology spy Joseph Grabowski. What was this now?
Grabowski.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
We'll break this down.
I wrote about this guy like 14 years ago, Chris. I had first noticed some things about him. He was, one of these interfaith figures who was writing at Huffington Post, and every once in a while he'd drop a positive mention about Scientology. I remember thinking, what is with this guy? Well, then I found out that year, Marty Rathbun on his blog posted documentary evidence that this guy was literally on the Scientology payroll.
Wow.
And 2 years earlier, in 2009, Jerry Armstrong had brought that up because he had heard something from one of the people working for Grabowski. So Jerry Armstrong had made that accusation in 2009, but in 2011, Rathbun literally posted the Grabowski program from OSA, showing what this guy's responsibilities were, right?
Right.
And at the time, I called up Mike Rinder to ask him about it, and he said, "Yeah, I hired him." And Rinder said that his job was the reason why they hired this guy. He was a young Catholic activist, interfaith guy, and they hired him to secretly work for Scientology to have some influence on the Catholic countries in Europe. And also, they wanted him at that point to reach out to the Muslim world. I don't think Scientology's trying very much in that direction these days, but at least at that time, they were very interested in that. And I think I'm going to have more information. I've dug up some more information about specifically what his duties were and what he was doing. It's incredible. It makes you realize, I think this is probably what you were reacting to, Chris. It makes you realize that until these kind of documents get leaked, we just don't know the extent that they're throwing money around. This guy was making, I know he only made $87,000 in 2004, but I think he was making more in 2006, 2007. He was making more than $1,000 a week, and this was just his side job, spying for Scientology, right? So it was really something. Anyway, the reason I wrote about it now, I actually got a response from him. I was at The Voice at that time, and I wrote about this, and I got a response from him claiming his institute. He started this institute, this Interfaith Institute, when he was 24 years old. This institute takes no money from any religions. Well, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, are you taking money from the Church of Scientology, right? Yep. He didn't answer that. He said that he had done some consulting for some churches. Yeah, okay. Well, the reason that, it always just stuck in my mind, Chris, that we had a brief window into some of the things that Scientology is doing behind the scenes at high levels of government around the world.
Yep.
So it stuck in my mind, and the reason why I wrote about it recently is I had not heard at the time, but in 2021, Grabowski died suddenly at only 46 years old.
Okay.
Doesn't say why. I mean, 2021. A lot of people died suddenly, and we know why. But
Yeah.
I don't have any proof of that. But whatever. I don't care. The point is that this guy that was making a lot of money from Scientology, working behind the scenes, passed away 4 years ago, and I hadn't heard about it. I just thought I'd mention him and remind people who he was. And I actually got a lot of reaction to that piece. I know you were pretty outraged.
Yeah, a little bit. Only because I was had not seen the Rathbun and Armstrong earlier articles because I was still in Scientology when those came out, and so this was literally the first I was hearing about it. And I understand and have understood for many years that Scientology has, and other cultic groups out there as well. Let's make no mistake about that. Pay professionals, whether in lobbyists, government advisory committees. I've even heard about, connections at the United Nations. The serious players who play in the tall grass of politics and ideology and sort of societal reform movements, are in the pocket of various cults, and Scientology amongst them. And it's weird to hear about, I think you've reported a couple times about over the years about Scientology, lobbyists on Scientology's payroll, here in DC, right? And it's just
Yeah.
not the sort of thing that we think about or talk about very often. And yet it's probably some of the most influential money Scientology throws around, in these dark back room kind of deals. And then everybody's got deniability. No, 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 I would never. And of course, that's all they're doing all day, every day. And of course, hearing that it's $1,000 a week, I think to myself, so here's these poor schlep Sea Org members working 24/7 for $50 a week max,
Right.
but they're willing to throw as much money as they need to at these
Yeah.
pros who are only doing it as a side hustle.
Yeah.
It's, there's so many levels of wrong connected with it, and it really got me thinking, okay, who else is on these lists that we don't know, whose names we don't know, right? That's what I'd like to find out.
Well, I mean, look, and the person that you are referring to there is Greg Mitchell. He is their Washington D.C. lobbyist, and we've got documents on him too,
Yep.
showing that see, the thing is, you don't see Scientology being mentioned in Congress. You don't see laws being passed that mention Scientology. And so you think, well, then why do they have a DC lobbyist? He seems kind of useless. But no, he's working behind the scenes. He's having meetings with high level people from around the world. And so was Grabowski. And that's the stuff. That's why, sometimes we wonder, why isn't this country outraged that Scientology is doing this? Why isn't that country outraged Scientology is doing this? What we don't see is that the leaders have been safe pointed by guys like Grabowski and Mitchell that are paid a lot of money to meet with them and to tell them the Scientology side of the story in a very, obsequious way, and it's all garbage. But so anyway, yes, it would be nice to know who's on the payroll today, but you can bet there are people like Grabowski on the payroll that today David Miscavige is relying on to meet at high levels around the world with leaders.
That's right. Exactly. So I hope and look forward to more reporting on that. And let me just throw this out there, folks. If you run into something like this in your professional circles, let us know,
Yeah.
because this is stuff we're very, very interested in. Right? There's the sort of entertainment media side of things, and then there's sort of the levers of power side of things, and one gets talked about an awful lot more than the other. So okay. Now, speaking of Mike, also, turns out
Yeah.
he and Brooke Hogan had
Yeah.
something to do with each other.
Right. So Hulk Hogan died on July 24th. Just a real shock. I mean, he was only 71, but wrestlers often don't have the longest lives. That's all the things they put themselves through. So maybe it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. But look, a legend. He was a legend. And part of what the press has been looking into are the conflicts within his own family.
Mhm.
that Hogan married Sky Daly in 2023. She had a Scientology background. She'd grown up in Scientology. That Hulk's daughter, Brooke Hogan, from a previous relationship, they were not talking anymore. What's going on? And so the press has been digging into that since Hulk died. And so this last week, Brooke gave her first interview to Bubba the Love Sponge and on a streaming show and said, "Yeah, I was really concerned that Hulk, my dad, was going to be marrying a Scientologist." And she was saying that what Sky was telling them was that, I'm no longer a Scientologist, but I want my kids to still see their grandparents who are OT8s. And so Sky's got to remain in good standing with the church so to keep that happen. Okay, this really alarmed Brooke. She wanted more information about that. She didn't understand what this all meant. It's bewildering information for people outside. And so she went to Mike Rinder. She said that on the show. So when I heard that, the first thing I did was I messaged Christy Colbrand, Mike's wife, and I said, "Listen, I don't know if you feel like saying anything publicly, but I'm just curious if you were aware of this." And she said, "Yes, yes." They Brooke and Mike had conversations. They may have even gotten together at one point. Mike was very helpful. Christy gave me permission to mention this publicly, what she was saying, and I just think it's great knowing that Brooke got that counseling and advice from Mike. Now, I asked Christy, I said, what I've seen is that Sky Daly and Hulk Hogan were married in September 2023. Like 2 or 3 months later, because there are a lot of questions being raised about, Hulk marrying a Scientologist. Uh, a couple of months later, they had a very public baptism. I think they were trying to put that stuff down. And then, look, his last few months, it sounded like he was getting a lot of health care, a lot of really good health care. It was just really becoming more difficult for him. I don't see any outward sign that he was sucked into Scientology. Christy also
Mm-mm.
agreed with me. But there's still good. There's still questions about, Sky's obvious. What kind of a deal did she have? What kind of prenup did she have? What kind of access to his money does she have? Is she just under the radar for her kids, or is she still tied into Scientology? Those are interesting questions. Those definitely, I think, are going to be some things we're going to have to watch. But I don't think Hulk got sucked into it, and I'm just glad that Brooke was able to go to Mike Rinder for answers about some things, and hopefully that helped her get through that.
Absolutely. And Mike was wonderful that way as far as helping people, reaching out to him. We all kind of do that in one way or another as exes who put ourselves out there. Um, One thing I want to sort of throw out there from my take on things is I don't think a Scientologist in good standing who is truly flying under the radar, or sorry, is not flying under the radar, is actively doing Scientology services, is going to tell anybody, well, I'm just under the radar. I'm just staying in to maintain communication with my OT8 grandparents for my kids. No Scientologist who's really doing Scientology and thinking in a Scientology way would allow themselves to make up something like that.
Okay.
That's just completely alien to the way Scientologists think. So to me, it sounds legit, right? It's not, and certainly something, not anything that the church is going to coach her into saying. If she was going to be coached or directed into no answering, Hulk or Brooke or anybody, it wouldn't be with that. It would be a different and more generalized kind of no answer. So I tend to believe that if that's what Brooke heard, then that's where Sky was coming from,
Okay.
and therefore, if anything, Sky's that whole thing now is blown for her. Like, oh, really? That's
Yeah.
where you're coming from? Really? Okay. Like now maybe Scientology is going to reel her in and be like, hey, what the hell? So it could actually end up, kind of backfiring on her in that way. But what are we supposed to say? Scientology is a destructive cult that does that. That's so and when you're a public figure, unfortunately, your life is not necessarily all your own. So things like this can come out, and it's just a difficult consequence of what you have to deal with being connected with that group. It is Scientology that is the source of that problem, not Sky. When I just want to stress that here. Scientology doesn't have to act that way, but it's kind of in their DNA too, so they probably will. So interesting story, on a number of counts there. But I definitely want to make it clear that I don't think she was lying about any of that, Sky. Okay. Now we got some legal activity this week on the Jane Doe, Danny Masterson civil lawsuit, not the criminal appeal.
Right.
What happened?
Yeah, the civil lawsuit is also on appeal. Very different reasons, but the civil lawsuit was on hold during Danny's criminal trials. The civil lawsuit was brought by the Jane Does, who were also in the criminal case, and some more people, and they're alleging harassment and intimidation and hacking and killing of pets since they came forward to the LAPD, and they're
Yeah.
suing Danny Masterson and the Church of Scientology. But that civil lawsuit was put on hold during the trials, and then after Danny was convicted, when the civil suit got going again, the first thing Scientology did was they came in and they filed anti-slap motions, basically asking the court to gut the lawsuit. Judge Upinder Kaura, LA Superior Court, denied those motions outright, just slapped them down. And meanwhile, we talked about this a long time ago, Chris. The women, the Jane Does, they were getting ready to ramp this thing up after the criminal trial, because once Danny was convicted of a criminal case, this civil lawsuit got a lot more weight to it, right? Things were on their side, so
Yeah.
they were proposing to put in a new complaint, amended complaint. They wanted to add civil racketeering allegations. They wanted to add sexual battery allegations. They wanted to add another plaintiff. But before they could do that, Scientology appealed Judge Kaura's denial of their anti-slap motions, putting everything on hold. This stuff takes so long. We had to wait and wait, and finally, in April, a year after they had appealed, Scientology put in its appeal brief, sneering, basically saying the lawsuit's garbage, blah blah blah. Now this week, I was able to get a hold of the Jane Doe's response, written by their attorneys, really well written. Of course, they're in a good position because they're agreeing with Judge Calra that he did the right thing, and they're trying to convince the appeals court that this was good work by the judge. And I just thought it was clearly written, smartly written. It brings up the terrible allegations in the lawsuit again really well, what these women have been, the horrible things these women have been through. And a really key piece here is, even though this lawsuit was filed in 2019, 6 years ago, we're still at a very preliminary stage in this lawsuit where the plaintiffs, the Jane Does, they just have to allege things. They don't have to prove anything. They prove things to the jury when there's a trial someday. Right now, they just need to allege them. Scientology's acting like they have no evidence. Well, the Jane Does are under no obligation to provide any yet. They're playing
Exactly.
Scientology's just playing games. This appeal was garbage from the beginning. It was just to slow things down. It definitely slowed things down. But I think this particular answer from them was really well done. Our expert Texas lawyer, who is an appellate lawyer in Texas, agrees and said some really great things about this brief. So I think the Jane Does are in a good place right now in this civil lawsuit. Now they have to Scientology gets a chance to respond to that, and then some months later there'll be oral arguments. I mean, it's going to be a while before this case can get back to the original trial court and get going again. So, but that's what Scientology does. They probably knew that this appeal was useless, but it's slowed everything down by a year and a half. So why not, right?
That's right, especially in today's, sort of hyper frantic news cycle. Things are forgotten a week later. Well, a year later. What lawsuit? What lawsuit? Right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's kind of like that, right? We track it. We're familiar, but yeah. So, folks, there's a lawsuit, right? And here's the update on it. And maybe in a few months we'll have another update for you. This is what we said right from the get go. Is this is the slow train? This is how these work. Um, just to update everybody, since we are talking about this stuff, what is? Let's remind everybody what the status is on Masterson's
Okay, so
appeal.
this is the civil trial
Yeah.
where the Jane Does are suing Scientology and Masterson. The criminal trial that put Danny Masterson in prison from 30 years to life is also on appeal. We have seen Danny Masterson's appeal brief. The district attorney's office is supposed to answer it. They've asked for some extensions. They've been granted some extensions. They are supposed to turn their response in this week.
Okay.
But even with like this one from the Jane Does, that came in, and I had to wrestle. This is behind the scenes, but I can't just download these from the court, the appeals court. I have to ask their media office to send it to me. And they were for days. They were telling me, Tony, it's not in. We can't. We have nothing to send to you. I'm like, I'm looking at the docket. It's in. Send it to me. They finally did. So I was about a week late. I do the best I can, but so I don't know. Will we get the DA's response right away, or will we have to wait a few days? Either way, it's supposed to come in pretty soon. And so that, if you remember, in Danny's criminal appeal, those attorneys were just trashing the Jane Does in their testimony, which I thought was bizarre because you're not supposed to retry the facts of a case in an appeal. You're supposed to basically argue that the judge messed up.
Yep.
But they went after the Jane Does. I think that was all a waste of time. They did have some criticisms of Judge Olmedo, and they had some things that they were bringing up. I don't know if it's going to stick with the appeals court or not, but I'm really looking forward to see what the DA says in their response. And like I said, that should be coming fairly soon.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
Great. Yeah.
Danny's still in prison. He's been in prison. I saw him handcuffed and taken away on May 31st, 2023. Right? So he's been in custody for more than 2 years now.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And also as another point of update on that, or just to keep it fresh for people, no real evidence that he has been declared suppressive by the church or disconnected from his, family or any of that. I mean, not like we have visitor logs of who's visiting him, but I'm just saying there doesn't really seem to be any tangible evidence that the
I'm
church is
very
actually.
skeptical. I'm very skeptical of the idea that he's been declared. I don't think he has been. There was one report, supposedly a Scientologist said to somebody that we were told he was declared. I don't buy it. There's too many things that the Church of Scientology has done since then that suggests that they have no problem with Danny Masterson and the people close to him. And I just don't think he's been declared personally.
Right, exactly. And there you go. So that's the update, sort of on the legal front with Masterson. And then finally, we are going to wrap up here with perhaps a new take on money making for Scientology
Oh.
and these ideal orgs. What was revealed this week?
I think this is really interesting because it's in the context of what Alex Barnes Ross has been doing in the UK.
Mhm.
He's been doing protests. He's been fighting off this law Scientology wanted passed to ban protests. But there's also something he did that was really smart. He was just looking at regular rules and regulations there and realized that Scientology was not following the rules about its annual giant tent that it puts up for the IS Gala at St. Hill Manor. That if you put up something that big and it's there for how many weeks, you're supposed to apply for certain permits and that kind of thing. And they weren't doing it. So once Alex brought that up, the government said, actually, he's right. You guys need to let us know. Well, Scientology then, instead of just going ahead and get it done, apply for the permit, which they probably would have gotten, instead, I think this is pure David Miscavige being so angry that he was even asked to do this. Instead, they had their UK lawyer, Peter Hodkin, try to grandfather it under the idea under the grandfather under the kind of ordinance that they give to permanent structures. In other words, okay, we put up the tent and take it down, but we've been doing it for so many years. It's like a permanent building. So give us permission. Give us backdated permission. And the council's like, no, you take it down. You put it up. It's not a permanent building. I can't believe they even tried that, Chris. It was so stupid. And that got denied a couple of weeks ago. Well,
Mhm.
the middle of October is going to be here in no time, especially if you've got to spend the weeks putting up that big tent. They still, as of today, have not applied for that permit, Chris. While all of that is going on, right? I've got readers putting down bets about whether they're actually going to have the IAS there this year or have it at Ruth Heckard. Who knows? While all that's going on, I got sent for a fundraising letter from one of my readers. Readers send me stuff. And it was the usual thing where, oh, we're going to have an all ideal USA. Thank you for your donations. You got to donate, blah, blah, blah. But then it says, you know what? Did you hear about this newest announcement? There's going to, we're gonna stop, with the one by one fundraising for each. We're gonna raise all the money for all the all ideal orgs at one time. Now we've heard this before, Chris. If you remember, back in like 2018 or 2019, Miscavige put that out then, basically frustrated at the slow speed of putting out ideal orgs. We're going to raise all the money for all the ideal orgs at one time, which I thought sounded impossible. But then the pandemic came, put that off. Now a similar statement's being made. We're going to raise all the money at one time. And next month there's going to be an invite only fundraising extravaganza with all of the movers and shakers. I've been told that there were Claire Headley told me that there were some things like this at Flag way back in the day, or at St. Hill Manor way back in the day. But I don't remember anything like this in the last 10 or 20 years, where he's going to bring down Tom Cummins and Jim Bridgeforth and Grant Cardone and the Atwater, whatever, I can't remember the name of that couple. The
Atkinson
Fabos
Bakers.
couple, Atkinson Bakers. That's who I was thinking about. Bringing in all the big multi-millionaire donors and having some sort of private invite-only party and raise $1 billion or something. I don't remember anything like that ever. And so, again, it's just a fundraising letter. It says it's coming next month. I haven't seen any confirmation yet, but it makes me wonder if Dave Miscavige knows the IAS has been screwed up for 2025 at IAS. We need to come up with something that looks bigger and better to make it look like we had this planned the whole time. Something like that might be going on, but we don't know yet.
Absolutely, anything is possible, and that's just as likely as anything else. Sometimes they get these blue spark meetings and get up these bright ideas and announce stuff, and then it fizzles, goes absolutely nowhere, right? Because maybe Miscavige didn't know about it, and then he finds out and he puts the kibosh on it, and somebody ends up scrubbing toilets all night, right? So it could go lots of different ways as far as this goes, but it was a fascinating announcement because you're absolutely right. Never seen anything quite like this. And the other thing, of course, being that they're getting down to dribs and drabs when it comes to finishing this program. This has been going on for 20 years now, that they've been fundraising for these ideal orgs and building these and buying these buildings. So it might be also the case that word is coming down, and it certainly, of course, you'd think it should be at this point. Hey, that's it. Let's wrap this thing up. Let's just get it done, right? I don't want to hear about fundraising anymore for ideal orgs, because I want all that money going to the IS. God damn it. It's not like they're going to stop fundraising. It's just they're going to maybe try to wrap up this embarrassing ideal org program now.
I mean, they've got quite a few planned. They still have quite a few planned. It's not like they're right at the end. I mean, they've got, just in the U.S., for example, you've got Hawaii, Albuquerque, Battle Creek, Michigan, Long Island, New York. I don't think Philadelphia's been open, right? New Haven, Connecticut, Boston, Massachusetts. So, they've still got quite a few just in the U.S., and they've got other ones planned around the world. So and if they're like, $20 or $25 million each, that's a lot of fundraising, man. So
That's
I don't
true.
know that they're all going to get it in one night, but apparently Dave's going to try.
Well,
And
that would be the thing.
maybe
It
that's how
wouldn't
we would
stop
say,
him.
well, we were going to have the IAS.
It wouldn't stop him from trying. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I can just see something like that being. I can just see something like that happening late September, early October in Ruth Eckerd Hall in Clearwater. And then if they get asked about it, well, the IAS in St. Hill is wonderful, but we wanted to do something extra special this year. And so they did this instead. And that way they get around the whole planning with the tent thing. I don't know. I don't know. It's just one fundraising letter. We're just trying to read the tea leaves. And that's what we got this week, Chris.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. The conjecture is fun. It is. It's truly fun to sort of see where this is all going to go. So the way, of course, to find out, folks out there, is I'm going to throw Tony's Substack address right there on the screen. Get subscribed to it. Get your daily notifications, check the thing out, and then check back in with us on Monday so you can get this wonderful wrap up and all of our tea leaf conjecture about the future. Now, we know that we're expecting the Masterson appeal response on the criminal case this week. Any other heads up on anything coming?
I think we're going to have a little more data about those spies, and which I think you'll be
Right.
interested in. So keep an
Good.
eye on the Substack.
Awesome. Okay, guys, you heard it here. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much for coming around and watching. And good luck and good day to you. Bye-bye.